Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziol.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Joining me today is Jonni Campbell from Differently Abled Entertainment. Thank you for being on the show, Jonni.
Thank you so much for having me here, Nick.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I mean, we had a couple challenges with scheduling and most of them on my end, so I'm so glad that you hung in here. But why don't we start with just like a little bit about you and a little bit about your organization so the audience can hear, what you do.
All right. Well, I am an actress, model, director, producer, and a paraplegic. I wrecked my car when I was 16. And, but I've always loved the arts and before my accident and after my accident. But life is different from a chair. And so a lot of the challenges that I've faced have led me to want to kind of break down some of those barriers, not only for people within the disabled community, but also other marginalized groups as well, because the entertainment industry can be very elitist and very expensive to get into. And so it's hard for those that are on limited incomes or from, low income family backgrounds or something like that to get exposure. And then there's also other reasons that people don't get the exposure that they need within the entertainment industry as well. And so that's our goal within the organization, is to help raise awareness and gain better representation for marginalized groups. And we do that through theater and movies, photo shoots, fun events, all kinds of different things. So yeah.
Well, in my very, very small snippet of the world where I have done some work myself, like I know how challenging it can be. Like I went to college to kind of study to be, involved with that kind of work, and very quickly saw how competitive that environment was and how much I didn't want to deal with the competition. And I was in a movie, if you can even say that. I was sort of like an extra hidden in the background of a movie, Woody Allen film called Celebrity, with Winona Ryder and Leonardo DiCaprio. And just that experience alone was pretty intense, going through the cattle call and all that. I guess just a funny aside story, my girlfriend at the time, who was an actress and a model, dragged me along to these kinds of tryouts and stuff. And she's like, "You should try out." I'm like, "No, I'm good," and so again, I'm not like that competitive person. I got to have the role, So they took a Polaroid shot of me, and they specifically said, "We're going to bring you through. Woody Allen likes to pick his own extras. He likes to be a part of everything." He says, "The only thing they said to me is, you don't talk to Mr. Allen." So what do I do when I go in? I go, "Hello, Mr. Allen."
Right.
And I must have done something right, because out of her entire family, and her included, I was the only one selected to be in the film. So, which was kind of cool, going back to New York City and doing like, sort of wardrobe call, and then 2 or 3 days shooting in an armory in New York City, which was neat.
That is a lot of fun. And I mean, and people often say that, like, I was just an extra, or I was just this, or I was just that. But honestly, like, those big movies can't happen without the extras that they need. And, I mean, it's really important, the roles that extras play. And so I always tell people, don't ever like downplay yourself as just an extra, because it's important too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm a shoulder and then a blur.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, but still, you
and
were there and you got to
I was there,
experience it, and like the energy, and just, I mean, and it's a fun experience. And yeah, sometimes, and that is the unfortunate thing about being an extra, is you don't know if you're going to end up in it or not, or just like, yeah, I mean, it'd be like, "Hey, I know that's my shirt. I know that's my shoulder right there." But, I mean, it's a fun experience. And, and it is fun for those that, like you say, like, if you aren't really into like trying to be an actor, It's still, it's fun, and it's just to kind of like get your toes wet a little bit in
Yeah.
all,
No, I
and
agree.
for those that are, it's a great way to learn about those experiences and learn the lingos and learn the things that, are happening on set. I always tell
Yeah.
everybody, yeah, that are interested in acting, like that's one of the first things that you should try to do is try to get yourself into some extras parts, just because you never know where that might lead. And then also the
Right.
education that you gain there on set is priceless.
Yeah, and I did learn a lot, and I guess one of the things that I learned was, like, I was an able-bodied young man, and it was tough because, like, it was my first time going into the city by myself, like, taking, the train. I think I was 16, maybe 17 years old, so, but the money was awesome. I mean, like, just to go to wardrobe, that paid for all of my trips back and forth from New York for the week, and then I got, like, a good little chunk of change just for being, like, this known talking, speaking part. But I guess that's kind of why the other reason I brought it up was like, if it's challenging for someone like me, I love that your organization is helping people that might need that extra like help on how to kind of get around and do things like this. So,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit more about, how I know, you're experiencing it yourself personally, but like how did you decide to come up with this concept?
Well, I mean, it wasn't just myself, it was also other friends of mine that have struggled and stuff. And yeah, it doesn't matter if you're disabled or not, the entertainment industry, or what kind of background you come from. I mean, it's hard for everybody, no matter what.
Hmm.
Part of what we're trying to do though is, there is, when it comes to the disabled community, um, especially, there's 26% of adults in America are disabled, but we're only represented in film and TV 1 to 2% of the time.
Yeah.
And of that 1 to 2% of the time that the disabled community is represented, they're actually represented by able-bodied actors.
Yeah.
So that is where we come in, and where I'm trying to like raise some awareness and get people, to put, I understand it in certain cases you need an able-bodied actor, if it's like a before and after, or um where you, or even like on Glee, which was a show that I
Yeah.
loved. There was an actor that was in a chair, but in his dreams and stuff like that, he could see himself dancing and stuff like that. And to me, that made sense. And I loved that character, and I loved what they did with that.
Hmm.
And because being a disabled person, I've had dreams like that. And so it makes
Hmm.
sense. And I understand in those instances that it's necessary. But then there's been other times where you see a character in a film that from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, they are disabled. They have
Right.
some kind of issue that's going on with them. And so those are the instances that I really feel that there's enough talented people, even even if they have
Right.
other things going on with them, it doesn't make them not talented. And so yeah, we try to like, we're kind of trying to get people to realize that the disabled community, or anybody from any of their backgrounds, we're just like everybody else. We have dreams, we have ambitions, we have lives, we work jobs, we have kids, we do all the things. And so oftentimes, because of how we're represented and the lack of representation, um people often have like a very negative view of what it is like to be disabled,
Right.
or um live in that struggle. Like I get told all the time, like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know how you do the things you do. It's like, well, I don't have any other choice, for one
Yeah.
thing. Like, this is what I have to live with. This is my life now. And so society having that concept of like, oh, well, there's something wrong with this person, so obviously they are incapable of doing all the other things that life has to offer. That's a narrative that I'd really like to change, and
Right.
get people to think about, you know people in, the disabled community, but like I said, also other things, by being represented, whether it's a person of color or LGBTQ or whatever it may be. um when people don't have those people around them in their lives, they have no understanding of what these people are like, or,
Hmm.
their cultures, their, whatever it is, because like I said, it's not just the disabled community that we focus on. That's where I can talk the most of, because that's where I can, speak from my own experiences. Um, and LGBTQ. I also, and, and some of the other things that we go under, but I just, that's where I think, representation is so important, is because it helps people understand other individuals that they might not know in their own day-to-day life. If you've never
Hmm.
met somebody, and because I'm a very active individual and I like to shoot pool and I go out to karaoke and I go out to places and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never seen somebody in a wheelchair shoot pool before. I've never
Hmm.
seen somebody in a wheelchair just at the bar doing karaoke before. Like, it's like they want to give me applause just for showing up and trying to have a good time. And really, that's from a lack of representation. That's from a lack of understanding. That's from, for no better word, it's just ignorance, because
Hmm.
people don't know any better. If you've never seen anybody do the thing, then obviously you're going to think that they can't,
Right.
and so that's where, and then also, I mean, just within ourselves, it's important to see people doing things, you know and to help other people understand that, hey, like, there are opportunities out there. There
Hmm.
are, talented people from all walks of life out there. And so that's kind of my soapbox that I get on. So
Yeah, that's
I
a
don't know
good
if I
soapbox to
answered
be
your
on.
question, actually.
No, I mean you're answering a bunch of questions that I had as follow up too that were coming to mind, and I think that's awesome. Like, I mean, one of the things that I feel, again, you were talking about like misrepresentation or misunderstanding. Like, a lot of times people with one disability sort of get pigeonholed right into the overall group of disabilities. So, like for instance, somebody who you know. It's simple, even something like even though maybe even someone in a wheelchair. Like I've seen people like talk slower to tell
Yes.
you, do you understand? Like,
Hmm.
and it's not. And I had a friend who she would she'd be like, I'm not deaf, dumb. I understand what you're saying. You can talk to me like a normal human being, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that some of those things, those misconceptions, like or the few movies or shows that people are on, they think they have to behave a certain way
Hmm.
um, with people with a disability. So, do you
Yeah.
think, like, this might be a little bit unfair of a question, but do you think, like, what are some of the things that you feel like Hollywood and like producers and casting agents are encountering as the blocks to like hiring people with a disability? Like,
There's a few things that come into play. One of which, I mean, obviously, okay, one of my favorite movies, and I use this as an example quite a bit because I
mhm,
love the movie and I love the cast. All right, but there was a movie, it came out in the late 90s. It was called Saved. And it had Mandy Moore and a bunch of actors, and Macaulay Culkin played a kid in a wheelchair. All right. And
mhm,
from the very beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, it stated that, like, he was at one point in time, they were in a car accident when he was like 5 or 6 years old, and that's how he ended up
mhm,
in a chair. He's like 16 at the time, but he's
mhm,
spent since, most of his life in that chair. And so that's one of the movies that I'm like, all right, there was a perfect chance for somebody that was actually disabled to have an acting role. Okay, so but the number one thing is, all right, names
yeah,
sell tickets.
yeah,
All right. Macaulay Culkin is a name that's going to put butts in seats. So, from a producer's perspective, that's going to make the most money, is that name. So, that's the number one challenge that we come into, is because there aren't
right,
any already famous actors that are in wheelchairs.
hmm,
Okay. So, that's the number one challenge. And then the other challenge is, yes, a lot of times people often think that there's going to be a lot of extra needs that go
Hmm.
along with it. You got to worry about accessibility issues. You have to worry about, if, and like normally if they use like the RV dressing rooms or whatever, is it accessible? Like, what are we going to do to make this accessible? Like, those are some of the, other challenges that they have to kind of think about when hiring somebody with that requires accommodations. All right.
Hmm.
Is, are they going to be able to accommodate for them? And what's that going to cost? Because really, when it comes down to it, a lot of the producers, they're worried about that, the bottom line.
Right.
Like, they see it in red and green. Are we going to be in the red? Are we going to make it to the green? How far into the green can we make it? That's
Right.
the ultimate goal. And from a business perspective, rightly so. That makes sense, right? But on the other flip side of the coin, like, if no one in a chair is ever offered that chance, like, who knows? There could be an actor that is just as good as Macaulay Culkin and that could get just as much acclaim, uh, you know, but never gets that chance. And so that's the issues, though. I think a lot of it, I mean, it has to do with who's going to bring, who's going to sell the most tickets. That's the number one thought. And then what's it going to cost if we have to have this person that needs accommodations?
Hmm.
What are those accommodations going to cost us? Those are the two things that I think hold directors and producers back the most when it comes to um, casting someone with a disability.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting that you'd say that, because with a lot of things, and I bet you this is also a problem with what we would call like everyday jobs and stuff like that. That same kind of feeling is probably happening with the bottom line, and like, oh, we're gonna have to do this and we're gonna have to do
Mhm.
that, and maybe this position like has a lot of travel. What does that mean? Yeah, so I can see how that would fall into play with Hollywood, where everything is super expensive. Every day of production costs a crazy amount of money. But so what do you, I guess, what does your organization do to help combat that? Do you combat that in a way, or
I mean, we are trying to equip people with the knowledge base and all that. And a lot of it is just, raising awareness. And then, yes,
sure.
we have helped put together a few film projects to where we've helped with the casting. And, and I've just been really talking with more producers and casting directors and about inclusion and about the fact that a lot of things that you think are going to cost like a lot, or it's going to be like so much more of a hassle, that also comes from that ignorance of not understanding that people with whatever situation they're coming from probably have a handle on that situation and can
Hmm.
probably tell you like the easy ways that they go about their life, because this is not a new situation for them. It's new and
Right.
uncomfortable to you because you haven't dealt with somebody in that situation, and so therefore you don't know. And a lot of times people are fearful about the things that they don't know and they don't understand,
Right.
and so that holds them back, is because they have this like view of what it is to be a person with a disability, of okay, so if there is travel, it must be really hard for you to travel. I mean, how are you going to do that? Like, there's all these things, but a
Sure.
lot of that comes from ignorance and just that misrepresentation, which is what we need to change. And so um that's I mean, that's how I try to talk to people, is going on podcasts, and talking to people, just trying to educate people and get people to think a little bit differently. And then as far as the hands-on things that I do is, yes, we cast people, with whatever varying things that they have. We have events for a lot of different, groups of people. We try to be as inclusive as we can with everything that we do, and not in a sense that it doesn't make sense. Cause I know a lot of things like, some people are kind of annoyed with like everything being redone in a different way, to where it's like, no, I want fresh things. I want new things. I just want you know, everybody to be represented properly, you know, and like, and it's a big lofty dream that I have, but you know, I mean, it crosses so many things. I mean, when it comes to, you know, I mean, LGBTQ, I mean, you oftentimes have straight
Hmm.
actors playing non-straight
Hmm.
characters. You know, you have it within people of color to where it's like if you have just a little bit of pigment to your skin, then you can play anything. You know,
Right.
there's like this cross thing, you know, you see it a lot between um you know, Asians and Native Americans and Hispanics and stuff like that, to where they're all just kind of, and I guess that's okay to a certain extent, but also it's not, you know. I feel
Hmm.
that people and cultures need to be represented properly. And instead of just like everybody's the same, like let's just, you know, I mean, if you can play this role, then they can do it. You know, I mean, we've moved out of doing blackface because we know that that's very, very offensive. Okay. We stopped doing that a
Yeah.
long time ago, but we still do it in different ways. It's just not as obvious,
Blatant. Yeah.
and it's just not as blatantly in your face. And you know, it's not like people are, you know, when they do that, I don't think they're really trying to be offensive or trying to be anything. Like I said, a lot of times it just comes down to the bottom line of who's going to bring in the most, you know, butts to the seats and the most
Hmm.
ticket sales. And so they bring in the actors that they think are going to be able to fulfill what they want their bottom line to be. And so, like I said, I can understand that as a business person. I understand the bottom line. I understand we all got to do what we got to do. But there's there's this backlash to it when it comes to the misrepresentation that just perpetuates other issues that we have in our society that I feel like oftentimes are being swept under the rug. And I'm not
Hmm.
trying to get political on anything like that. It's just facts of life from all different angles. There's just a lot that people try to glump together. They try to like
Hmm.
just put everybody into like one big thing, and we're not. We're all individuals and deserve to be treated as such. I don't know.
No, I think you said it right. I mean, it is, history has, you know, even what I do, like college, I work at a college, and for the, colleges were built for, people that were well off, there were male, that were white, and that's like how it started. And it's very hard to break from that mold and start to include things because it's just the way that things were that
Hmm.
started, in history. And I'm not speaking this very well, but you get what I'm saying. It's just like that's the setup, right? And then try to
Hmm.
break that mold and try to get out of
Yes.
that in any kind of situation with any kind of thing that's been set up, and there's a history there.
Hmm.
The people in control and in power, whether they want to do it because they're ignorant, or whether they want to do it because they're specifically trying to exclude people, or whether they want to do it because they just don't like change, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just it. I don't want
Yeah.
things to change. You think about, even kids, like they want to play the game the way that they created the game, and they don't want to change it, right? To make it really overly simplistic.
Exactly.
So I think that, like, I admire what you're doing to educate people. That speaks to my heart. Like, I love education, so that's why I've spent most of my career in a role that supports that. And trying to let people know that it's okay, to ask questions. That's the other thing, is like,
Yes.
people are afraid to ask questions about, like, well, what would this cost, and then you could very simply say, hey, I deal with this every day. There are places that are inaccessible to me that should be accessible, but I still do it. I still get there. And this is how I overcome those things. Here's a list of things that would make it easier on me. But you know what? Macaulay Culkin and all these other actors and actresses have those lists of things. We must have, 500 green Skittles, and,
Yeah.
like things that are absolutely outrageous requests that some actors, actresses, and singers and famous people have. That, like,
Yeah.
I remember I remember when It was MTV invaded our campus when I was working as a student, and some of the requests that these artists have are absolutely ridiculous. You know, you must have in the green room these items. It's like, okay, you know. So
Yeah, and so you bring up an excellent point in that. Like, what is the difference between all of their special requests and somebody
right,
needing a few reasonable accommodations?
yeah, yeah,
You know, yeah, exactly. I don't need 300 green Skittles. I would just like to be in the green room. Thank you.
right, right. And I think that if you look at it from that angle and you change people's perspectives and you answer like their questions, and that's kind of like what your organization is doing is coming forward and advocating to say, hey, it's not that different from, you know, whoever wanting you to, you know, ride him around on a unicycle, whatever the thing might be. Like some of the
Yeah.
things, like I'm trying to think of a real specific. I remember there was, I don't want to say a name just in case I'm wrong, but there's like a singer who, like, everyone that was her chauffeur was not allowed to speak with her, like not allowed to address or talk to her. I'm like, that is crazy because, like, what if you need to change where you're going or something like that? You're not allowed to talk to the person now. It's just there's just so many things that I think are really crazy that like normal people, I shouldn't even say
Yeah.
that, re- would request that are outrageous, that,
Hmm.
like, you know, people shouldn't even be thinking about requesting. So all right, so like how can people, you know, get involved with what you're doing?
Well, we have remote opportunities as well as, I mean, we're based in Tucson, Arizona.
Mhm.
And so anybody close to, around Southern Arizona area can definitely get in touch and get involved locally. But if you're not local, like we still have a lot of opportunities volunteer wise, and we're starting to put together some virtual events. And so I'm starting to collaborate with some people on what that looks like. It's still very much in the beginning stages, but I'm always interested in talking with people and hearing their ideas and seeing if it's something that we can work together on, and what that looks like. And so that's one way. Um yeah, reach out. I mean, our website is always a little bit of a work in progress. It's like me and
Mhm.
one other volunteer that does most of it, and so bear with us, but it is there. So
Yeah.
and you can reach out to us through that. But yeah, there's and donations are always very much appreciated. If you care about what we're trying to do, supporting us with a donation is always nice. um because yeah, I mean, that, like what we were talking about, it costs a lot to do the things that we're doing, and there is
Mhm.
that bottom line when it comes to any production, that we have to worry about. And then just our normal overhead just to keep our doors open type of stuff too. But then
Sure.
when we do a play, we got to play for the rights, we got to get the costumes, we got to do all the you
Right.
know um there's just a lot of costs involved. And so yeah, any kind of donations are always very much appreciated. But there's, yeah, like I said, volunteer opportunities. There's, if anybody's got a script or something like that that they'd like us to, like maybe look at, talk about producing, whether it's theater or film. Like, I and my goal is, I mean, we've been a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization now for 3 years. My goal is to have chapters in other cities, especially like
Mhm.
entertainment hub cities, Albuquerque, Atlanta, LA, New York, Chicago, um, like Nashville for music, anywhere
Yeah.
that there's music, movies, anything like that happening. I would love to down the line have our little chapters in each of these, cities. So then that way people have their safe space there where they can go to try to seek representation and inclusion and just activities. We have acting classes, which we do in person, and then we also offer them online and stuff like that for anybody
Mhm.
that's not local, or that even if they are local, a lot of people sometimes within the disabled community have transportation issues and stuff like that. And so that's also why we're trying to um, be as inclusive as we can, and offer people opportunities, whether or not there can be like physically with us or not.
Sure.
So yeah.
So we're gonna put all that, like all your links and stuff in the episode notes. But what is that website that people can kind of reach out
Yeah.
to?
Our website, and we call ourselves DAE because it's DAE.
Mhm,
It's less of a mouthful than saying differently abled entertainment all the time.
mhm.
And so our website is our day, like belonging to us, OURDAE.org.
Awesome. All right. So definitely check that out. See how you can kind of connect with Jonni and her team, and get involved. Like even if it's advocating for the cause, right? Getting the
Yeah.
word out there. So what are, like, I mean, we talked about a number of them, but like I guess if you had to kind of, I don't want to, maybe like give us 3 or 4 different things that we could do, like from the computer, right? Or in our everyday lives to kind of help with this cause, what would it be? What are some things that we can kind of help advocate for?
Yeah, sharing our stuff on social media,
Sure.
the trifecta of the like, comment, share, helping with the algorithms, that's always something. Donations, reaching out to volunteer, telling somebody that uh, you know, about us. Like, I mean, we are, like I said, we're a baby nonprofit. We're just starting
Right.
out. A lot of this, I got the idea originally from a hospital bed, honestly, because I
Sure.
spent 10 months in the hospital in 2019. And then I started it as a Facebook group in 2020 after I got out of the hospital. And I ran it out of my bedroom basically for the first few years. We've been in our brick and mortar space for a year now. So woohoo.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, with
Congratulations.
that, I mean, there's the challenges and all of that. So like I said, anything to help, yeah, advocate for what we're doing. If you know of another, I mean, even a podcast or a magazine or anything like that
Right.
to help, that could help us raise awareness to what we're trying to do. And then, yeah, I mean, film projects, theater projects, the
Mhm.
list is endless, really, what people could do. Like, even like if you're here or if you're not here. But yeah, number one, advocating, helping us advocate and spread the word is like the hugest thing, because that's how we grow. That's how people know
Right.
that we even exist. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
I
Jonni,
really want to
go ahead.
thank anybody out there that does, kind of want to contribute, or think that even if you can't contribute like your time or money or anything, even if you just send a little email saying like, hey, I think what you're doing is awesome, like that really means a lot to me, just to know that what we're trying to do is important to other people, like really means a lot. And so thank you
Mhm.
to anybody that thinks what we're doing is important, and thank you, Nick, for having me here today.
Of course, of course. I'm glad that you came on the show, and I'm going to ask you that the question that sort of stumps people at the end. Like I ask, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you definitely want to highlight? So think about your answer to that while I kind of go forward a little bit further. But Jonni, I mean, what you're doing is amazing work. And I thank you for it, right? Because people like myself who sometimes take for granted that um, the world is a little bit easier, right? That I don't have a disability that affects, my daily life. Other people might disagree with that. But like, joking aside, like, it's very important that we're reminded of, the fact that there are people every day with different types of challenges, that we're not walking in those same shoes, and that we should just kind of think about, like, how can we be more supportive of everyone,
Yeah.
able-bodied and non-able-bodied, and challenged, whatever aside. So
Yeah,
I
and
think,
if I could just touch on what you just
yeah,
said, because
sure.
that's actually the meaning of our name with differently abled entertainment. It's
Mhm.
not just talking about like the disabled community. It's talking about
Yeah.
the fact that everyone, no matter what you're dealing with, we all have to approach life differently. We all have
Hmm.
different struggles. We all have our challenges, and we all live our lives differently and have to do things differently in order to get anything that we're trying to do done. So
Yeah.
just to kind of,
Cool.
I mean, we're all differently abled. Everybody on the
Yes.
planet is differently abled.
Yeah. I've been called different many times.
Yes.
He's different. So I get it completely. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to share with our audience that you want to hit home? Covered a lot
Um,
today.
well, I think I pretty much I soapboxed quite a bit. So yeah, just thank you everybody. We're gearing up for our first all youth production for theater. And so yeah, check us out, check out our website, see what we're up to. We do a lot of fun things. And like I said, we're trying to add more virtual, events and stuff like that. And so yeah, just get in touch.
Awesome.
Love to hear from you.
Well, thank you so much for making my day. Jonni, you've been absolutely terrific. And thank you for being on That Sounds Terrific.
Yes, thank you. This has been terrific.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.